What's going on, you guys? This is Anthony here from Finding Our Adventure. Today we've got the Coleman Duel Fuel 533 single burner camp stove in front of us. This burns white gas fuel as shown up here on the bench, and it also burns unleaded gasoline. So that's where the term dual fuel comes from. This is a 10,000 BTU burner stove, and we're going to test it out today, run it through its paces, and eventually we're gonna get to boiling 6 cups of water to make a big old pot of coffee. For a number of years, I have fallen in love with white gas stoves. So I have a number of these single burner units and the dual burner units, as you've seen in some of my other camping videos. And I've grown to love these because of the mechanical nature of applying your own pressure to the tank, buying the raw fuel in canisters, weighing it in, etc., priming and all that. I really enjoy the mechanical nature of these and how you can actually repair these stoves in the field. And although they may take a little bit longer to use, they do have benefits. So a benefit with the dual fuel stove like this is I can use it in virtually any temperature, and it's going to work way better than propane in temperatures below freezing. And so this canister here, this 533, is 10,000 BTUs, so it puts out a ton of heat. Will last a little over 2 hours, fully cranked on high, and can be used under freezing where propane stoves will not perform. 1 full gallon of white gas camp fuel is going to last as long as 4.5 of the large propane canisters. So you can see that this takes up way less space. Now, in order to use this stove, you're going to need a couple of things. Number one, you're going to really want the Coleman fuel filler. So you can see here it's got a little filter on the inside so that you don't get any particles in there. It's got a little exhaust release, and it keeps you from overfilling the tank. It's really nice. I just shove it in there like that, take my tank and pour it in. Another great option is this fuel filler neck, also from Coleman. I'm going to link all these parts down below in the description. It's got a siphoning valve that pushes up and down to control the release of fuel. So it's not going to release fuel while it's sitting here. But when I decide to put some in the fuel tank like this, I can push down on the nozzle and put fuel into the tank, release, and there will be no fuel spillage. So I just put in a little bit of fuel into the tank, and you can see here, no fuel spilled. You're gonna wanna use quality fuel. So you can see here I have some Crown white gas camp fuel. Also, you can use the Coleman brand camp fuel. It's $1 or $2 more expensive and a little harder to find, but this is readily available at your local Walmarts. I've been using this for years and have never had an issue. And of course, you're gonna need a way to light this stove. So I bring you a couple of methods here. My favorite method is the tried and true lightning strike fire starter. I absolutely love this thing. It is worth every bit of the $60 or so you're going to pay for it. I've had this for about 8 or so years, and it's still in almost brand new condition. My striking rod is connected. I've got a really nice thick ferrule rod on the inside here. Very nice and thick, that throws a massive spark. And so what this does is you can spark without causing an issue of blowing your tinder out of the way. And on the back side, for emergency use, you do have some tinder to light off. So I like to use these. I'm going to leave a link in the description below for that. Otherwise, if you want to just go the old school route, just use some matches like these little Yuko brand matches. These are stormproof matches, so they'll light in the wind. I like to use these when I'm out desert camping, and I usually keep it in this little watertight sealer. It's got the striker on the back, and you can keep a ton in there. So I like to keep a bunch of matches in there, a spare striker or 2. Actually, I think there's 2 spares in there for redundancy. And this whole sack is waterproof, so I bring that with me. So those are just a couple of ways that I'll use to light this stove up. And so all these will be linked in the description below. These are just products that I enjoy. First things first with this stove, I'm gonna obviously fill it with fuel, which we already did. Make sure my fuel cap is nice and tight. Make sure my fuel lever is in the off position. You've got wide open here, which is at like 2 o'clock, and then you've got all the way closed, which is around 9, 10 o'clock. I'm gonna open my pump port here 1 full turn, and I'm going to pump about 25 to 30 times. Once I've pumped 30 times, I'm gonna turn this all the way in until it seats and it's screwed in tight. Before I light the stove off, I wanna make sure that I have no leaks anywhere. So I'm gonna look around the stove assembly and check for leaks of any kind. All right, once you haven't spotted any leaks on the stove, you're gonna actually wanna turn the stove all the way on high and immediately light it. Okay, so we're on high here. We're gonna take this and we're gonna pump it up another couple of pumps. Okay, we have the stove on high, we have it pumped up, and now we're just gonna back the flame off a little bit. And what's happening is you see a little bit of a yellow flame here. So basically what's happening is we're now vaporizing the fuel through this tube that's going over the top and turning it into a fuel vapor. Once that happens, we'll start to notice that our flame goes from yellow to blue. Once that happens, you sort of hear a difference in the way that the stove runs, and the actual flame itself becomes almost translucent, as if you can't see it. Now, while that's working, I'm gonna add some water into our coffee pot. Boiling 6 large cups. For the coffee, we're gonna go with the vanilla nut variety. And we'll just add that on top. All right guys, after a couple of minutes, we have a rolling boil here in through the glass viewing port of our GSI 8 cup or 12 cup stainless steel coffee pot. You can see the water percolating through the top, dripping through the coffee, coming down. The stove's doing a fine job so far. I would say this is a bit overkill for this system, but I want to test it out, make sure it does good with the excessive heat buildup from underneath, etc. Seems to be doing good so far. I've got the fuel down just a little bit. I could turn it up if I want. This isn't the most flexible system, like it's really hard to simmer on this, but you can get it just low enough if you want. This is mainly used for getting things up to cooking temperature using cast iron, boiling coffee water, etc. I'll let this go for a couple of minutes, keeping this stove running, and we'll see where we go. All right, we've boiled the coffee water for a few minutes. To turn the stove off, we're actually gonna run it on high, low, then high, then low, back again, and then turn it all the way off. These stoves will sometimes run for another minute or two after that. Then we're gonna remove our source, keeping in mind that this could stay on for another minute or so. And what we'll do is we'll take this nice coffee water and we'll give it the old swirl. Get all the grounds out. Give it the nice swirl. Practice this with extreme caution. Okay. Now our grounds are going to be at the bottom. That smells good. While my coffee is cooling down, I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this Coleman Dual Fuel 533 single burner stove. I think it is an awesome little piece of kit to have in your arsenal, but it does come with some flaws, which we're going to talk about. Number one, this stove can be a little fickle in the wind, even though it does have these wind guards. Okay, so it can go out in the wind if the wind blows hard enough. Number two, it does take a little education on how to use it. So you have to pump it up the correct number of times. You have to check for leaks. You have to put in your own fuel and make sure you're not overfilling. You have to reprime midway through if you notice the tank pressure going down, etc. Number three, because the burner head is so close to the top of the tank, with something as large as this coffee pot centered over the top like this, it deflects a lot of heat down towards the top of the tank itself. And through my testing, I was able to get the top of the tank so hot that I physically could not touch, say, like the fuel cap without a pair of gloves on. Even right now, touching up here, I can only hold my fingers on for 3 or 4 seconds before them wanting to burn. That's really hot. Towards the base of the tank, it's lukewarm. And I did measure the temperature here at about 110 degrees towards the base. So down here towards the base, it got up to about 110 degrees. We're in a garage right now at 70 degrees. There's no wind flow, so that may account for the temperature variances. So it'll probably be colder where you're at and you won't have to worry about this. But if you're in a higher temperature area, I would maybe not use a pot that's this large around. That would maybe deflect some of the heat back towards the base of the unit. Being that the fuel source is pressurized and you're adding temperature here, that could increase the pressure, and in a very, very odd scenario, I could see issues forming where you could have too high of a pressure buildup. So at the end of the day, do I like the stove? Yes. I like it because it's white gas, the mechanical nature, and it's a cool little complement to have with my Coleman Dual Fuel. I think it's the 414 stove that I also have. In the end, did it boil a big pot of 6 cups of ice cold water? Sure did. Did it do it efficiently? It sure did. But there are other burners that I think can do it faster, more efficiently, but to each their own. So as far as this review goes, I like the product. Anyways, enough about that. Let's take a nice little sip of my steaming hot coffee. Nice vanilla flavor. Oh yeah. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked the video. And if you'd like to purchase any of the items shown in this video, I'm going to leave links in the description below. Those are my Amazon affiliate links. They are at no additional cost to you. It just helps support my channel so that I can play with stoves like that more often. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I sure did. It's been a fun one, playing with some coffee and cook pots in the garage. This is another video from Anthony here at Finding Our Adventure. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next adventure.